We want you to plan for success. Welcome to Planning Matters Radio.
Hey, Peter, it's really good to see you. Today we are breaking down 3 ways that the debt ceiling could affect your finances. U.S. debt hit a record high. I don't even like to bring up this visual, Peter, because it gives me so much anxiety, but let's take a look. $31 trillion. So now Congress will have to vote whether to raise the debt limit again, fueling fears of default, which could have enormous consequences on the U.S. economy, global stability, and our finances. So let's talk through everything that's going on here. First, what is the debt ceiling?
So technically, the debt ceiling is how much we are able to borrow to meet existing legal obligations. But it seems like, at least my understanding of what the government's legal obligations are versus what they continue to fund is very different. I think that there are some basic things that we need to address as far as legal obligations, and every time they raise the debt limit or talk about funding or budgeting or expenditures, there seems to be a whole lot more that is included in their conversation than what you, me, and most everybody else I would talk to would consider as our government's legal obligations. So yeah, we're up against that again. 86 times that we've had to raise that debt ceiling since 1960. Right. So we keep borrowing more and more, Erin.
I'm sensing a pattern, among other things. So for context, the last time Congress had a close call with the debt limit was back in 2011, when the federal debt stood at $14 trillion. Before defaulting, though, Congress did reach a deal, but not before the stock market dropped 14% over 4 weeks. So looking ahead, should investors consider leaving the volatility of the stock market right now?
Well, I don't know about that, because there will be some kumbaya moment where the same people who speak out against raising the debt ceiling come to terms, or maybe they don't, but those dissenting voices are in such a minority that everybody else agrees the government must go on, Congress must maintain their ability to keep spending and borrowing, and then they raise the debt ceiling and things continue to move upwards as they sort of always have. Yes, there have been difficulties. Yes, the market has seen periods of volatility. No, we don't like moving through them. But when you kind of back out, the market has continued to move up despite these small periods of volatility. Looking at the debt in more understandable terms, though, and I'm going to take off 7, 8 zeros here. If we were a family making $40,000 a year, what we're talking about here is that we have hit a credit card limit because we owe $315,000 in credit card debt. Except it's worse than that, because with every zero that you take off, it is a 10 times larger problem and differential. So it's actually 10 million times bigger than that $40,000 family income example. So this is not hyperbole. It's not exaggerated. This is really a big problem. And it's kind of the result of this modern monetary theory that we've gotten away with it so far. And so it must not really matter how much money we create out of thin air or borrow or take on as debt. But if that's truly the case, my rhetorical question is, why am I paying taxes at all, Erin?
You're asking me. I was going to ask you, Peter.
Yeah.
So we should write a letter to the IRS with that rhetorical question, shouldn't we?
We should. I think that they would resoundingly say, because you have to.
I think you're totally right. And then again, we want to add context to all of this. So this, Peter, is a great visual that even as we have this volatility in the market, the importance of staying invested, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's important to get that context and to zoom out. However, we've zoomed so far out here that the pain and losses in those down times is sort of obfuscated as well. Because if we were to have retired with a nest egg of savings in any one of those down times and actually been through it for the several subsequent years that it was down, it could be a very painful and really retirement life altering kind of period of time. So yeah, in the grand scheme of things, zooming out is important to gain reference of the fact that the market has worked so successfully, but it also has gone through some painful periods where if we've lived through them, that has certainly had some financial impacts.
Right. Thank you for pointing that out. All right. The second way that we are talking about it affecting everybody's finances, surging borrowing costs, because a default could push interest rates even higher, drastically affecting the cost of borrowing. So what if I had planned on making a big purchase this year?
Yeah, well, they've raised interest rates throughout 2022, and several more interest rate increases are expected into 2023 because the goal was to tame inflation and slow the movement of money. Theoretically, if they really wanted to do that, all the money that they put into the economy during COVID, they would have removed that money and then thrown it in the furnace, burned those bills, and then inflation would become more under control. But that's not what they've done. They have really not slowed their pace of spending or of borrowing and creating and digitizing into existence new money. So they've made it harder for us to finance things or borrow money. And now we have to add in not only the cost of goods going up, but the financing prices and costs that are included in the price of everything that we paid for. So things are getting more expensive for us, but it doesn't bother the government because they just get to raise their debt limit and continue borrowing. Does higher interest really matter if I could just create new money out of thin air on a printing press and say, okay, well, I'm getting charged higher interest. Here's the money to pay for that.
Right. That's why you sometimes hear about just minting a $30 trillion coin, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, absolutely ridiculous, but the idea has been floated.
Right. All right. Number 3 here, cuts to Social Security and Medicare possible because, of course, if the government defaults on its debt, there could be a lapse in the 90 billion monthly Social Security payments made to 65 million people. So how should those people prepare for that eventuality? And of course, that doesn't happen in a vacuum. If that happened, that could have huge effects on the entire economy.
Yeah, again, I feel like as though we're going to have some kumbaya moment where this gets addressed because you know what the number one job of every elected official is to continue to get re-elected. Absolutely. Yep. And if Social Security payments were to cease or get cut or impacted or affected by their inability to budget, then that would be one of the biggest things where it's out with the old and in with some new fresh faces that hopefully would be a little bit more fiscally responsible. And that might not be the worst thing, but that would be a pretty painful process. But if you touch on that debt of the usdebtclock.org, scrolling down to the bottom there, the situation is actually much, much worse than we sort of advertise there because the unfunded liabilities of Social Security and Medicare, when you add those systems in, are $181 trillion and continue to grow.
Right.
So, I mean, this is a really, really bad situation. I mean, there's a lot of words there that we could expound on that probably aren't airworthy, but this is messed up. And when they passed the new Secure Act 2.0, one of my observations of that was that they gave us a lot of additional ability to save more and to pay taxes up front with Roth options. But what I noticed there was a lack of was anything that was on their shoulders to solidify these systems, right? So they've said to us, hey, you need to be doing more to pay for your own retirement. You need to be doing more to prepare for your own income and healthcare expenses in retirement. Here, we're going to raise the limits, but they did not have, there was an extreme absence of any language about how they were going to solve their unfunded liabilities and Social Security trust fund shortfall and Medicare and Medicaid, all of those things. no language about how they are going to help improve their side of the bargain there, Erin.
Right, right. And again, just to kind of put a bow on this and how this could affect everybody, you and I, Peter, have talked many times about whether we are in a recession. And of course, a default could very much exacerbate any existing recession.
Yeah, sure could. And would, and that'd be a pretty scary time. But again, if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you've always gotten. And maybe that would be the spark that ignites a little bit of change there to a move where we elect more fiscally responsible people. It's the job of the Congress to pass a balanced budget, a budget at the very least. And they just don't even bother doing that generally. So no wonder if we don't have a spending plan, we keep running into the problem where we've spent too much money. And if we default, I'm worried about that. Again, I think there will be kind of this kumbaya moment where they come together, but we've got to address the root cause of the issue, not just the symptoms that continue to result because we have a lack of desire to truly address the root cause.
Right, right. Peter, I always really enjoy talking these things through with you because they're so complex and you make it very easy to understand. That being said, of course, these moments are stressful. So if somebody would like to speak with you about how they could be affected by what's going on in Congress right now, what's the best way to reach you with questions?
Sure. Just give us a call at Richon Planning, 919-300-5886, 919-300-5886, or you can go online. It looks like richonplanning.com. It's my last name, Richon. You can email me, Peter, at richonplanning.com. And again, Erin, always appreciate the opportunity to speak about these matters. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to put the contact information out there so concerned savers and investors, proactive planners can be in touch.
Everyone, exactly. Peter, thank you.
Thank you.
This has been Planning Matters Radio.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookzone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.